So it hit me this afternoon that I needed to share some things that are heavy and very personal and painful, and that's not the easiest thing to do. And as I've said before to you guys, putting myself on video is not the most comfortable thing for me. But I realize people would rather listen to someone speak than to read long stories and articles and blogs and so on. So I want to ask a question. What does real love look like? Is it flowery and gummy bears and rainbows and all the cutesy little things that we want to portray it to be? Or is it sometimes tough and straight and a little harder to swallow? The world has twisted the word love to the point that it doesn't even represent what it's supposed to be most of the time. Society says, you love me if you let me do whatever I want. You love me if you accept all of my crazy ways. You love me if I, want to just act angry and say whatever, and if I want to be this way one minute and be that way the next, then you love me anyway. Yes, unconditional love is a real thing. But what does true love look like? Would you say that you're loving your best friend, your family member, your child, if they are, I don't know, demanding to do things that are bad for them? Your child wants to eat ice cream 3 times a day, every day. You don't love me if you don't let me. I mean, does that not sound like the same sort of thing that people are demanding right now? What they're yelling for in the way of peace and love is not true peace and love. What it is it's accept all of my junk and let me keep doing it, and let me do it at everyone else's destruction. Really? Yeah, that's not love. Allowing people to continue in destructive ways is not loving them. So let me ask you a question. You have a friend and you're walking down the road, and you know that the road ends and there is a cliff coming up, but the person that you are with doesn't know it's there. They have no idea. Now, let me ask you this. Is love letting them go their way because it's what they want and you don't want to hurt their feelings? So you let them walk off the cliff and fall to their destruction. They die, but you didn't hurt their feelings, and by all means you allowed them to do what they wanted to do, because that's real love. What if you have a family member who loves to drive their sports car on this favorite road? It's their favorite road. Now you happen to know that their favorite road is unstable and a storm has washed it out. The way that they are going is leading to destruction. The road is washed out. You heard the report that this particular road is bad. They didn't hear the report. They have no idea it's there. They don't know the road is gone. They don't know what's ahead of them. But you do. You absolutely have had the report. And you just let them go 90 miles an hour down that road because you wouldn't want to spoil their fun. By all means, you wouldn't want to upset them. They want to drive their car 90 miles an hour down that road. That's their favorite road. Now, we know that these scenarios are absolutely ridiculous. But how different is it if you know the truth? You have hard evidence. You have seen something at work in your life. You have seen God move. You have heard his voice. You have had him intervene. You have seen things with your own eyes that only faith can describe. And yet, because you don't want to offend somebody and you don't want to hurt their feelings, you just let them go on down that road to destruction or walk off that cliff because it's better for you. Now, I call that selfishness. I don't call that love. I call love loving the person where they are. You love somebody, but you do not have to accept or love their sin. And allowing them to stay in it and not caring about their eternity is selfish. You're more concerned about how they're going to react to you than how they're going to react to God. Now, there's not always something that we're meant to intercede in a way of directly attacking it. I mean this to say, sometimes God will say, I need you to pray about this. And that is the way that you intervene. And I need you to love on them and love on them and love on them and just love them where they are. And that is absolutely a wonderful thing to do. There are times when God wants us to stand up for what's right because you don't know but what that person only has another day. And so what do you do if God says, you need to tell them? You need to tell them. How much time do we have left? Do we know? Do we know if we've got a year, 2 years? Anybody, at any point, whether we're talking about the end of the age or we're talking about regular life cycles, how long do we have? Is that fear? No, we don't need to be in fear. But if you saw that friend walking off that cliff, would you not say something? Are we going to sit by and watch as millions of people continue to walk off the cliff? Because we're afraid of hurting their feelings because they don't understand what real love looks like, because we are more worried about ourselves and how the world accepts us instead of worrying about their eternity. Everybody's not going to like you. Listen to me now. Everybody's not going to agree with you, and it's pride to worry about it. And I'm telling you from experience, this is something that God has been working with me on, because worrying about what somebody thinks, whether good or bad, is pride. And yep, that sounds a little simplistic, but when I was in Africa a couple of years ago, I had this beautiful experience where I was just in this just white expanse. Like we're driving down the road and all of a sudden I am in this just lovely place with him. And there was nothing but just beautiful, comforting, soft, white nothingness. And I did not care if people liked me or they didn't like me. I didn't feel like I had to perform or impress. And likewise, I didn't care if they totally disagreed or whatever. There was an absence. It was not, I don't care what you think. That's bad attitude. It wasn't that. It was not defiance. It was that it just didn't move me one way or the other. And when we are not moved one way or the other by what people think, then we can be humble. And unfortunately, We will not say what we're supposed to say a lot of times, and we will not stand up for what is right a lot of times because we are not humble. It may sound like it's pride and wanting our way, but it's more so worried about having people be offended with us. And while I agree with loving people where they are, I love people, and I have had friends of all kinds of backgrounds and beliefs, and I can love on them and share with them, and they share with me. And I believe that open communication is key, but there has to be open communication both ways. You have to respect one another enough to be able to discuss things. And I mean things like beliefs about race, beliefs about politics, beliefs about faith, all of these things. We cannot fix these things unless we have really honest, respectful communication with one another. But we can't be afraid to say what's right, because we're running out of time before people start falling off the cliff. And if you really love them, say something. You say it in love. You be led by the Lord, but don't be afraid. And I'm not sharing this because I have all figured out, and because I have it all figured out, and because it's all easy and all the things. That's not why I'm saying this. And this thing with Roe versus Wade, guys, we need this, and the enemy doesn't want it, because there is such an evil behind this that it goes way beyond what the enemy tries to simplify it to look like. Oh, it's all about women's health. No, it's not. It's about greed. It's about power. It's about idolatry. It's about sacrificing our children. How is it any better than Herod? There were groups of people who would sacrifice their children to idols in the Bible. And yeah, I mean, you can read. God was not about that. He was not about that. It is not a form of contraception. It is not I made a mistake, let me just fix it. Because what happened to the sanctity of life? God created life. God gives us children. And we can't be afraid to stand up and say it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It's wrong. And this is the part that hit me earlier that is really not about what anyone else knows or how you accept, or it's not about feel sorry for me. This is not something I would want to put on here, but I feel led to say that I have such a personal experience with those early stages of life. In 1995, at 21 years old, I lost my first child. And it was a girl. Her name was Brianna. And I was 18 weeks gestation, which is no big deal, I guess, for people to go and get an abortion, whatever. I'm gonna tell you something. She looked just like me. She was built like me, had my features. That was my baby girl. I gave birth to her. Labor, the whole thing. Fully awake, gave birth to my daughter. If you think for one moment that they have no feelings and that they are not people, you are just sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. I knew the moment she died. I knew the moment she died. A mother can feel her child and knows her child before they're ever born. I turned 22 August 1st of that same year, and I had become pregnant again fairly quickly after having Brianna. Not trying, though I did try to get pregnant with her because I had female issues. So I had worked at getting pregnant with my daughter. I had taken my temperature and all the things, and she just came too early. My body couldn't carry her. And I was pregnant again. And in December of that same year, at the age of 22, I gave birth to my son, Christian, who looked like his father. His hands and his little feet, he just looked a lot like his daddy. And as he lay in my arms, holding my finger and trying so hard to breathe, I knew his little body was suffering. Think what you want. They're people. They're babies. They're not clumps of cells. They're people. And some of us wanted them so bad, and other people throw them in the garbage. I got angry. I didn't understand. I got angry. If God had not allowed me to see my son in the spirit standing next to the bed, I probably would have lost my mind, because I knew that he knew I would have breathed for him if I could. And this is not to condemn any of you who have made choices that you felt you needed to, or who were forced into doing things you didn't want to, or who didn't know any better. But people, we have to be responsible. We have to protect our young. It is only by the grace of God that I have the 2 children that I had. All of my babies were early. My oldest son was 1 pound 5 ounces at 24 weeks gestation. 24 weeks, that's 6 months. I was only 6 months along. Do you understand that they do abortions, just these late term, these partial birth abortions? Do you know what they do? And I have him today. I have him today. They're people. They're people. If you find yourself in a bad place and you can't handle being a parent, then please, by all means, do the one thing a parent can do and give your baby life. And let somebody else raise it. Let there be an adoption for a family who can't have children or just loves them so much that they want to help them. But please, at least give them the choice of life. Why Why does this double-minded world that we live in worry more about someone who decides they want to be a man or a woman having a bathroom that is something different than what it should be? Why do we worry more about bathrooms and not enough about babies? Who cares? What are we going to stand up for what's right or not? God gives life. He creates us the way that we are. We are what we are, and we deserve to live. Sanctity of life is serious. It's important. Do something. Not out of hate. But how can you say that it's not love if we don't accept all of the stuff, if we don't accept all the sin, if we don't think everything is hunky-dory and fabulous and say everybody's okay for doing whatever you want to do, doesn't matter what it is? So love that, but don't love the babies, because that's inconvenient. So it's really not about love. It's more about the attitude of a bratty 5-year-old. I want what I want, and I'm mad at you if you don't let me have it. And this is what we say society should be managed by? The whims of everyone and whatever they want and whatever they think is okay at the moment. Now, I know that everyone is not going to like this. God's already told me everybody's not going to agree with everything I have to do or say. But He is the one that I want to please. You can never please everybody. I love people, and I love them enough not to let them walk off the cliff. And I love God enough not to allow us to continue to slaughter His babies and make fun of the way that He makes us and the things that He says that we should be and do. Because I know that most people who are living against His ways, all people who are living against His ways, who are in things that are so confusing and aggravating. Those people are just hurt and they need healing and they're miserable. I don't want anybody to be miserable. As someone who has fought depression my whole life and has had anxiety in years past and all kinds of things, I don't want to see that for anybody. And I know that if you're not walking in the peace of God, you're being tormented. And I'm so sorry if you feel that way. This is not to condemn you. It's to say that there is a better way. And for those of us who know the better way, if we're not standing up to point it out, then how can we say we love the ones that don't know? Don't be afraid. God loves you. There is a better way. Thanks for listening. Talk to you again.